Okay, hello everybody. I am Lisa Herrick. Many of you know me and have known me for years and years, and other people who are new tonight. I started 31st Street in my house on 31st Street in Washington, D.C. with 30 people. We are now a group of 1,500. We have been going strong since 2017, just after Trump was elected. So you can imagine why we began. This is our last fundraiser of this year. We have been pedal to the metal all year. We've raised almost $2 million. We have focused on a number of key states, including North Carolina, but in addition, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, a little bit in Wisconsin. And we're sending canvassers to Virginia as well, because we're concerned about House candidates there. So we have been just sort of marching forward with the good news in the media and the bad news in the media and the good news in the media. We just keep going and doing our thing and staying focused on doing everything we can do to elect Democrats. And we're very, very grateful that all of you are here tonight. And for those of you who are new, thank you so much for joining us. If you're new, you don't really know what 31st Street is about. And so tonight you'll get a bit of a taste of us. We have two guest speakers from our North Carolina slate, Christine Kelly and Linda Cooper Suggs, and they will be speaking with you in a little while. We, in addition to priding ourselves on helping to elect Democrats, we pride ourselves on running a tight ship. So we try to start on time and end on time because we know your time is really valuable. And there is nothing better than a well-organized machine. That's sort of what we all think. And so we're just gonna sort of keep to the time slots and have each person speak briefly, but we will have time a little bit later for questions and answers. And so we will give you a chance to ask some questions of our guest speakers or of Jim. Feel free to put a question in the chat anytime you have one, and our membership and question guru, Erin Hamburger, will get to your questions a little bit later. I want to thank all of the co-hosts, and here is a list of our wonderful co-hosts who agreed to invite their friends and family tonight to donate themselves, and we really appreciate your helping us with this fundraiser, and here is the list. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We have raised about $64,000 and we have a goal of $100,000. And so we want as much as we can to get as close as we can to our goal tonight. We have no doubt that we will get to our goal. In the 7 years that we've been in existence, we have never not met a fundraising goal ever. No matter how crazy the goals are, we always meet it. And that is because the people who joined us and who join our events just believe in what we're doing and believe that we have an analysis that makes sense and we have a focus that makes sense, and it is a good place to put your money and your time and your boots on the ground if you go canvassing. We have added an 8th candidate to our slate, so a relatively new candidate to our slate, Carla Catalan Day. Which really just tells you that Jim, who you're going to hear from in a minute, is constantly analyzing the data and the campaigns and the candidates to see who needs our help when. And we rotate candidates off the slate if they seem to have enough money, and we rotate candidates onto the slate if we think they're really in need and they might win and they need the money. So our slates are right up to the moment, and we hope that you will donate tonight. There will be a donation link put into the chat repeatedly, and if you just can't focus on that while you're on the Zoom, it's on our website. It will come out in the thank you letter, so you'll have lots of opportunity to see our donation link. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hand it over to Jim. You're on mute.
Thanks. I know many of you, for those who don't, I'm a retired epidemiologist, and this is kind of my life. because it's really important, but it's also very fun and interesting most of the time. So the way I can really communicate is with slides. So I'm going to go ahead and begin my slides and get us started with the program. A little bit about us, if you'll bear with me, those of us who know us pretty well, but as Lisa was describing, we're very careful, and I spend a lot of time trying to get the best opportunities for you and us, because we invest our money also in these things. We look hard for strategic opportunities, which very often means looking where people are not looking so much. And there's a lot of disproportionality, if you will, in our field. And so there's a number of good opportunities. And we focus on just a few things where we think we know what we're doing, and we keep at it. So we do think that pays off. And part of that is that we are evidence-based, using evidence in a very broad sense, qualitative, quantitative, and so forth, and practicing due diligence to kind of get a really good sense of what's going on out there in our political ecosystem. And we also, as part of that, expect to change. And as Lisa already mentioned, one thing we did is we added a candidate who came into focus, and we think will benefit for what we've got to offer. And of course, timing is very important, and we're in that cycle now where we're really bearing down on the very key down ballot issues. So a little bit at the national side, after a number of months when things were looking really bad, it's really pretty clear that the tide is turning nationally in a number of ways. And I've got a slide here of many of those things. I'm not going to take the time to go through all of them, but for example, we've done really well in 5 special elections, got legislative successes. Biden is really sort of feeling his mojo, if you will. People are feeling better. But also the data, sometimes a little bit kind of obscure or subtle about voter registration, and even early mail-in applications are going our way. I've got a little bit of that to show you in just a minute. But first, I think our best issue by far is abortion. It's not the only one. This data is a little bit old, but it's pretty compelling. Post-Dobbs, asking a national sample about who they would vote for, a Democrat who supports the right to abortion versus a Republican who doesn't. And of course, this doesn't necessarily translate into actual voting behavior, but it's a very good indication. So now shifting to North Carolina specifically. Here's some data. This is data on the gender gap. And these data were actually collected in, I believe, mid-August, as I recall, from Dobbs until mid-August, looking at the gender gap. Now, ordinarily, there are more women vote than men, so it might be like about a 2% gap. And, you know, there are really extreme cases, obviously, like Kansas and Pennsylvania. North Carolina is still a pretty sizable one. North Carolina actually has quite high voter registration numbers, though. So that may be one reason why it hadn't had that impact, but that's still a very sizable kind of difference. And likewise, this is actually much newer data, just from a couple of days ago, looking at new voter registration data by party registration. And North Carolina does have party registration, but most people register as unaffiliated. And over time, some of the older Democrats have kind of shifted more to being Republican and so forth. But and we think most of the unaffiliated voters that are registering hopefully tend to tilt Democratic. Notice that actually at this point, since Dobbs, the new voter registration in North Carolina has tilted blue. Now that number of voters isn't necessarily going to win the election, but it is an indication, hopefully, of preference and enthusiasm among other voters. So a little bit of positive indication for us. And one reason why we're in North Carolina is because, we think these things are winnable. Okay, now what are those things? So probably most of you, maybe all of you, are pretty much familiar with these things. I'll start with Sherry Beasley, who's a very, very compelling candidate, but for Senate. But at the national level, all we need is 2 more US Senate votes to get the rule on the filibuster change for voting rights. And we can get the Senate to pass a good voting rights bill. Now, we also have to hold the House. So we actually have a slate of 6 US House candidates, but it also includes 1 in North Carolina, Wiley Nickel, in a swing district. So that's important too. We also have judges races that they run statewide in North Carolina, including 2 in the Supreme Court. And it was because Democrats had a 4-3 margin that reasonably fair maps for the US House and for the legislature actually were adopted. The last 2 points relate to this point that we're trying to preserve Governor Cooper's veto power. At the moment, the Republicans don't have the votes to override his veto. North Carolina is kind of unusual that you only need 60% of voters present to override a veto in both houses. But as you can see, we're just like a couple of votes toward the edge in each house. And lastly, of course, we want to always be preparing for that important race in 2024. All right, just to tell you what we've been doing up till now, this has been going on for some period of time. So we spent a lot of time on infrastructure, again, thinking that it was really a good investment to try to support things that were going to help us up and down the ticket and across the ticket. So we support the Democratic Party. That's another story. We supported a couple of very fine grassroots groups in North Carolina. Again, doing year-round work and year-round canvassing and so forth. We also, again, have this support for this House district in North Carolina. And now, yes, indeed, we come to the North Carolina Statehouse candidates that we're talking about tonight. All right, so now why is the North Carolina legislature so very important? I hear you asking. Again, we want to protect the governor's veto because otherwise they're very extreme. They're like Pennsylvania. They'll pass a lot of weird things, bad things. At the same time, there's a positive side to this, that on some issues and on some things, the Republicans will come together for important things. And for example, the state Senate did pass Medicaid expansion this year. The House, didn't get to it, but the more Democrats that we have, the more likely that can get done. Key point, one of the reasons, maybe arguably almost the most important thing why we do this is that we think that by supporting these legislature candidates, we're going to be supporting the people at the top. So if you think about, $10,000 going to Sherry Beasley and how much you might benefit that race versus spending $10,000 on some of these other races, which I'll describe lower down, I really think you get much more benefit than the nanosecond you might get of television time for Sherry Beasley, important though it is. We want to get candidates elected, get experienced, and become the bench for future candidacy up the line. And this may seem a little odd. We don't have really prospects of winning the election, although it's possible, actually. It's conceivable, the House. The more Democrats we have, the better we'll be protected against potential Republican election fraud in 2024. But here's another really, really key point, which is that these races are such that money really will help them substantially, including now in the campaign season. All right, so now I've talked about this power up or reverse coattails effect, where we say by supporting local candidates, we'll get more votes at the top of the ticket. In some ways, it seems intuitively obvious, not something that's very easy to study, but the basic idea is that you have local candidates. They'll bring out local voters to vote for them, who otherwise wouldn't vote or wouldn't vote Democratic. And that's the basic idea. But the thing that's especially salient about this, especially important, is it's really the local ground game as much as anything, or more than anything else. So basically, when you have a relatively small district like that, the candidate and his or her volunteers and paid staff can get around, get out, and actually see candidates and talk to candidates. That's not something that statewide candidates are really generally able to mobilize. And it's actually extremely powerful, in my opinion. And again, yeah, that's why the state higher level campaigns just typically don't have that presence. So this is why it's a real bonus. It's a synergy that we're getting here, we believe. Okay, now, this is now our sixth cycle of doing this. And, come to understand a lot of way how legislature campaigns can work. Don't claim to be great experts exactly, but I just wanted to lay out to you, if you contribute money, what is that money going for? Well, in the first instance, it's going for staff, campaign manager, finance director, field organizers, that sort of thing. Then there are supplies, especially literature, but other kinds of things to sort of make the campaign work. Polling, which is something that sometimes the candidates themselves don't pay for, but they may pay for part of it. And a lot of times the Democratic Party will also help pay for that, but that's an important cost. You got to know where you are. Mail outreach is very, very important for these kind of campaigns. It's affordable, it can be targeted, it goes to the people that they want to reach out to. And then one of our favorites at 31st Street, which is digital outreach through social media, direct to your computer, but also streaming TV, like Apple TV or Hulu or that sort of thing. A really very powerful thing. Now, all those things are kind of the basics. Oh, sometimes, especially in rural areas, they'll do radio, which is pretty inexpensive. The last thing is television, which is a very blunt experiment, typically very expensive. But the point I want to make is the folks that we're talking about at this point basically don't even have enough to fund all these basic kind of things. They don't necessarily have enough money for all the mail they even need, or their digital outreach and so forth. So it really is why we think this kind of money is very, very useful. Okay. So just one major example of what this power up thing and how the layering that you can see, there are a number of layers throughout the state, but this is the most kind of intricate one, significant one. Our own Christine Kelly in House District 37 lies entirely within a state Senate district of a toss-up state Senate district that's very, very important of Sidney Batch. And all that is totally within Wiley Nichols' US House district. And then, of course, that all goes to benefit Sherry Beasley and our statewide judges. So it really is a powerful power up, if you will. So here they are, our now 8 candidates. As Lisa mentioned, we did expand to include Carla Catalan-Day because it looked like her campaign could use the support and also had some real power up potential for it. So this extra bonus for you, an example of how we are flexible and how we change. And I think, just again to put on the table, we want to raise $100,000 for these folks, and we were at about $64,000 as of just earlier, just before the meeting. So a lot of people do contribute in advance and so forth, and a lot of your outreach is already bearing fruit, guys. So thanks so much for that. But we still have a good bit of a ways to go. And with that, I'm done with my sort of foundation and going to turn over the mic to Christine Kelly, over to you, Christine.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you, everyone. I'm just thrilled to be here. This is my second time presenting to 31st Street, and I appreciate some familiar faces on here. I can't even begin to express how much the 31st Street has fueled my campaign and made such a difference in momentum and confidence, and just making sure that, to Jim's point, getting the right staff. I'm now planning my mailers, looking at digital. So it really makes a big difference for a candidate, because we are spending time trying to go out and talk to voters. I do want to share a couple of slides to show a little bit of a piece of what Jim says, but just why this race is so important. But one of the things I wanted to share is I've been out knocking on doors every day, and I'm now in the persuasion stage. So a lot of unaffiliated in our area. And I knocked on a door where they moved in July. They hadn't registered to vote. So that I made the point, make sure you register to vote. This is the website. This is how you do it. These are the candidates. And we typically talk about the up races, but also our school boards as well. So all of us are going out to make sure that we educate everyone. Every single vote is important for our race, and we are helping up and down. So if you can bear with me, I'd love to share a couple of slides, and I'll make sure that you can see them here. Does everybody see my slides? Yes, okay, thank you. And while Jim was talking, I was trying to figure out how quickly I could go ahead and capture the new image with Carla, because I adore Carla, who is now also on the 31st Street site, and I didn't think I'd have enough time. So please know that we all know each other and we all support each other, and I'm thrilled that Carla is now part of our 31st Street slate. So first and foremost, what I want to share is that we are just so grateful for everything you've done. The last time I spoke, I emailed all of my counterparts, and everyone was saying they could see the support, and it gives momentum financially, but also with confidence and just making us feel better. So a couple of things just to highlight, because I heard that you're from different states. So North Carolina is now the 9th largest state, and these are our big cities. And to Jim's point, we are a state with a lot of unaffiliated. And I went ahead and pulled the numbers. And so in the last month, we've had another 23,000 registered to vote. Out of that, 18,000 were unaffiliated. So we are a fast growing state with a lot of unaffiliated voters. And those are the folks that we need to go ahead and talk to and make sure that we educate on what's important for our slate. And a lot of my friends are unaffiliated. Part of it, they're school teachers, and they're worried about their parents knowing what political party they are. I mean, that's kind of the climate that we're in. So it's very easy for me to talk to unaffiliated voters and make sure that we talk about things that matter to us, like funding education, the environment, et cetera. So this is one of the things that Jim mentioned, but I wanted to say that the Republicans are going out and they're talking about 3-2-1, 3 House, 2 Senate, 1 Supreme Court, and we can take King Cooper's crown away. I mean, that really is a battle cry that they have. And that's one of the things that we're all working hard to make sure that we can change. I'm in a district with a Republican incumbent. She only won by hundreds of votes from the last election. She had a poll that I was polling ahead of her, so we can flip this. And that is why we're doing this, is to help Governor Cooper veto power. Because what's at stake, right? We have Governor Cooper has vetoed 65 bills since he's been our governor. And when we were able to get the supermajority in 2018, he's been able to sustain 28 of these votes. Those are like the Don't Say Gay bill, or more to take his power away, or don't have background checks for guns. Those are the things that we're fighting for. And that's why it's so important for us to be able to sustain or gain seats in the House or the Senate, so that we can keep North Carolina a sane place. And we are all experiencing different sorts of attacks in different ways. These happen to be some of the examples that I'm seeing, but they are worried in my district. I've had 8 negative mailers so far against me. Because they are worried. They know that, particularly now, because the climate has gone so positive for the Democrats are more favorable, and you can feel it when you're knocking on doors. People have hope and want to get more engaged, and they are worried. So it just gives you an idea of the kind of things that they're doing. And one of the things I wanted to share this Friday night, one night, we have a trifecta. Trump is going to be in Wilmington. I have Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're also raffling off guns in Wake County. And then we also have Lauren Boebert in Charlotte. Like, that is what's happening in North Carolina on Friday night. And it's because they understand how this state is going purple and they are worried. And can you imagine? It's like, I'm busy. I'm not going to any of these, but that's what's happening in our state. So I just highlighted a little bit of the different places where we are, and we are centered around some of the same places that the Republicans are trying to gain. And we also have to highlight Forsyth County. But a little bit about us candidates, including Carla. Who are we? We are, some of them are attorneys. I work in a STEM and a computer industry, nursing, teachers. We all share passion to make sure that we take care of our environment, our state, the people in it. And this just gives an example for me. I'm trying to put myself out to say, I want to work hard so that we can raise the quality of life for everyone here. We all have our personal stories of why we're running, and it is because we want to make a difference. We just do. So for instance, I've been in this area for 30 years. I've seen it grown tremendously. I'm running because I want this to be a place where my children can have as many rights as I do, that the environment is protected, that we have healthcare, things that I had when I grew up in Canada. So I'm passionate, and all of us have stories. And Linda, who I respect immensely, you know, her teaching history and background, we all care about what's going on happening in our state. So here we all are with Carla. I am just, like I said, what you guys do to support us makes a really big difference. Personally, for me, it made the difference of extra mailers, because that is where they're attacking us. I share a love of numbers like Jim does. The average age in our district is 35. So we're lucky to see if we can increase our digital ads as well. So those are the things that your help is making a difference in our campaign. And from all of us, we're so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. Those were great slides. They're just very helpful in bringing the story home and making it understandable. We will have questions and answers in a little bit, but next we're going to hear from our next guest speaker, Linda Cooper Suggs. I think she is here somewhere. Let's see.
I did see your sign on.
Okay. Hope she didn't get bumped off.
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, there you are.
Thank you.
Take it away, Linda.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and for me being able to meet all of you for the first time. I've had my interactions with James and some of the others, but Lisa, it's a pleasure to meet you and to see you as the visionary for all of this, which helps all of us. I am Linda Cooper Suggs, District 24, Wilson, North Carolina. And that is in Eastern North Carolina, east of Raleigh. And that brings with it a different story, because Eastern North Carolina, not only my district, but also the districts moving from Wilson going toward Wilmington with the coast, they're very poor. They're very, very, very poor. So therefore, that's what I bring to the table. I am from Eastern North Carolina. I grew up in a family of mom, dad, and 6 brothers. I attended North Carolina A&T State University, but prior to doing that, during my family, I grew up in an agricultural community. So therefore, my parents taught us a strong work ethic, but also strong religious values as well. I did attend North Carolina A&T State University, finishing in 3.5 years with honors. And then I came to work in Wilson. So I've spent my professional career here in Wilson County, but I retired from the school system in Wake County. So I spent my last year in Wake County, and that did boost up my retirement some. But the thing about it is that I became a National Board Certified Teacher in 2000. I was the first African-American in my district in Wilson to become a National Board Certified Teacher. And my area of teaching was home economics from way back. And then the name was changed to Family Consumer Sciences. The thing that I love the most about all of this within my district our camaraderie, but my district is highly competitive. 51.2% Democrats. We have a lot of unaffiliated, as Christine said a few moments ago, within Wilson County. I must turn out 85% of the African-American vote, at least 30% of white Democrats, because sometimes white Democrats in my district will vote Republican. So that's part of the issue that I'm dealing with here in this district. It's tough. What's the issues that motivates me? Number one is broadband. We have an issue here in Eastern North Carolina with broadband for our children, for me personally, as well as for telemedicine and all the other things that come with it. Other issues that concerns me is affordable housing. We just don't have enough. We really don't. Wages. Our wage, what we're seeing in Wilson, North Carolina is that we're 45, 50 minutes from Raleigh. So people work in Raleigh and live in the outlying municipalities. They can't afford the rents here, but the people who actually live here cannot afford the rents many of the rents that we have. So that is an issue. Mental illness is also an issue here. So I'm fighting for that. Teachers, to have a certified teacher in every classroom, not a substitute, but a certified teacher in every classroom, and to have state-of-the-art equipment is also another issue that we're dealing with. And the support staff and food insecurity and a livable wage is also an issue here. So I fight for working class families. I fight for jobs. I fight for health care, because we have a problem here in Eastern North Carolina, which is quite different than in our more metropolitan areas. My campaign is very competitive. It truly is one of the most competitive campaigns. I've had 6, 7 mailers sent out on me, negative mailers sent out on me. But I saw the first ad yesterday, the first TV ad that targeted me on yesterday. My niece sent it to me, and I was a murderer, I was CRT, and I was for the Green Deal. So therefore, that's the way they are targeting me. So I see now what Christine said, how they're trying to get this district. What am I going to do to win this district? What are we doing? We're out 6 to 7 days a week, and we're canvassing. We're going door to door talking with people, but we've also sent out postcards. Postcards not only, I targeted first my new district, which was in Nash County, which is very, very Republican. That's what they did to me. Extremely Republican, so I targeted Nash County first. And I sent them, postcards were mailed to them, introducing me to them. We're going to send postcards to almost like 12,000 of them to voters here in Wilson. We're going to contact our base voters, and also the low propensity of sporadic voters. But we're targeting African-American males. That's one of the groups we're targeting, 18-year-olds to 96-year-olds. We're breaking that up. But the other thing too is unaffiliated females. We're targeting those, and those are the ones that I will call personally, just to talk with them, to visit with them, and to do what I must do there. So what do I need? What else are we doing? We're in the churches, because churches is still a major part in Eastern North Carolina. So speaking in my churches, my sorority, which is Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, as well as the other sororities and members of the Divine Nine, sororities and fraternities, our Masonics, our civic organizations, we're bringing everybody together. And now we're putting articles in the paper for me, because he's been doing this for a long time. Money. Guys, I'm telling you something. Mailers, I can't afford, I don't have enough money for these mailers. And now since he's on television, I never even dreamed of television, not for Eastern North Carolina. To be honest with you, I just didn't think of it that way. But now to look at that, and then to hire more staff, so that I would, so that I'll be able to do my job in the office and have people to help me. And this digital campaigning, that's the other part of what I need to be able to do. I just want to thank you, whatever support, the support that you've given, whatever you can do, I would truly, 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 truly appreciate it. So thank you so much for having me on this evening. And it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for running. It's an incredibly hard job just to run the campaign, let alone be on the legislature. So thank you. Before we take questions for Christine Kelly and Linda Cooper Suggs, I'm going to go to Mary Pence, who's going to just talk to you about how important your donations are.
Good evening, everyone. You know, in an odd kind of way, I feel right now suspended in a no man's land. Since January of 2021, all of us in 31st Street, along with countless others across the country, have been focused on just two goals: electing two more real Democrats to the US Senate and keeping the Democratic majority in the US House. Some things, as Jim said, have been going our way recently, but there's all this noise, polls, predictions, opinions, forecasts, and it makes me feel very unsettled. And so I just keep on doing one more thing and one more thing and one more thing to make a difference, inspired by these words of our president, Joe Biden, as part of his speech on September 1st, 2022. And Jim's going to put up a slide so that you can see these words as I read them. He said, "Our task is to make our nation free and fair, just and strong, noble and whole. This is the work of democracy, the work of this generation. And if we do our duty in 2022 and beyond, then ages still to come will say we, all of us here, we kept the faith, we preserved democracy." These 8 candidates for the North Carolina legislature, in connecting with the voters in their districts, will not only increase Democratic representation in the legislature, they will also bring voters to the polls to elect Wiley Nickel to the U.S. Congress, Sherry Beasley to the U.S. Senate, and Democrats to the North Carolina Supreme Court. And so that is what you have an opportunity to influence tonight with the dollars that you contribute to these candidates. My husband, who's sitting right next to me, and I have contributed $8,000 to this slate. That is how important this is to us. Please, each of you on this call tonight, as you are making or adding to your contribution, ask how important it is for you to do the work of this generation for generations to come. Thank you.
So I'm going to turn it over to Erin, who is going to take any questions you might have for either of our guests or for Jim. Erin, I will give you the mic.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks to all our speakers tonight, and thanks to all of you for being here. And I just see in the chat we are at $85,000. Wow. So we started at 64 like less than an hour ago. Pretty amazing. So first question that I have for both of our candidates is, it sounds like you need to reach out to maybe non-traditional voters, or like younger voters, or voters who, we call them high potential voters. Some people call them low turnout voters. What are sort of the strategies that you have found that work well to reach those voters who don't come out so regularly? Maybe Christine could start first. And then.
It's a great question, Erin. I mean, go where they are. I mean, I am attending, as Linda said, going to the local churches, going to the farmers market, and it's easy to go to like the Democratic events because those are your friends and they're going to vote anyway. I have to go out to other places. So in some ways, our area, even though We are close to Raleigh. We're still rural in some of the farms, and it still has a small town feel. And so definitely going out where people are, waiting in line. What are your issues for you? We have a lot of young families here, so making sure that you can relate to how it is with young families, participating in the schools. So going out, and it's always something. I was on town council before. That is something that I pride myself in doing. During COVID, I checked on small businesses, and I don't pay attention to what party they're with. They're just folks in our community that need to be checked in. So I think that's part of what we need to do.
Great.
Great question, Aaron. Thank you so much. Christine, thank you so much. And I look forward to serving with you in the North Carolina House. So we have a lot of work to do. I do. How do we go out? How do we reach those sporadic, low propensity, our young voters? What we're doing here in this district is, number one, with our teens. We are involving more and more of our teens. And we don't have a team auxiliary yet for the Democratic Party here. So teens are working with me in my campaign. They're the ones that come, they are volunteering to come out to do photo shoots, but to also go canvassing because we're training them. And one of the caveats that we use is community service. So, and they need those community service hours, but a lot of them are getting more and more involved in what we're doing. What we do strategically is that we pull voting lists, just like with African-American males or unaffiliated females, or even those sporadic voters or low propensity voters. We pull those voting lists, and once we make the initial concept of calling, for example, with African-American males, there's about 1,500 of those. And between, 18 and 19-year-olds, we have about 300 of those. So we've already finished making all of those calls so that we can get as to where they are. Are they willing to vote? Have they moved? Can we locate them? Do they need persuasion? And between myself and my congressman, we're making some calls to those that need persuasion, those that said, I'm not going to vote. But what our next step is, and this is where we need funding, is to go out and find the ones that we cannot locate. We need to increase voter turnout among that group to get them involved in the process, to teach them how to do this. And then when we look at the other group, the 20 to 96-year-olds, which is a much larger group, about 1,100, 1,200 of those, then we're going to do the same thing. We've got to go where they are, as Christine said. We have got to be able to find them or find their grandmamas, find someone else. With unaffiliated, I do calls and postcards. We've sent postcards to all the unaffiliated women here in Wilson, in my district, Wilson County, District 24, and as well as Nash County. So that's what we're doing with them. And then I will make calls to them personally to talk with them, to find out where they are, and use my power of persuasion for them to switch over to the best party on earth. That's what I will do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Christine, I know that there was a question about guns and defunding the police. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So I served on town council when I was a minority, right? It's mostly Republican group, but we worked together, like 95% we were together, because when you talk about people in the community and things that you need to do, we were in line. It's only some of these other type of subjects that get tougher. One of the things that I'm hearing my opponent talk about, I want to take SROs out of schools. I want to ban guns. I grew up in Northern Ontario where our family hunted, and that was the way we lived. I don't want to take guns away. I never have. I support the Second Amendment. When I became a citizen, I said I swore and believe in our Constitution. The nuance, though, is that I do believe that we should have background checks, and that it should be, it shouldn't be easier to buy a gun than it is to go and get a pet out of the SPCA when you want to adopt. So those are the things we're looking for. But we need to be careful because the Republicans are painting us that we are radical, want to take away guns and defund the police. in a municipality, when you call 911, you want someone there to service you. That doesn't change. They don't check who you are in terms of your party. So those are the things that as Democrats, we have to make sure that folks understand we are for common sense things. When I was on town council, this was during the George Floyd murder. And yes, we had very peaceful marches. The police were marching right along with our community. We were talking through difficult issues and asking questions like, tell me, do you feel safe? And our town was marked as being one of the safest towns. And for the first time, I heard people say, but I don't feel safe. And those are things when we sat down with our law enforcement officers to say, please, let's dialogue and build trust in the community. Because I also knew that our police force morale was getting down too. So it's a complicated and fragile in some ways system where we have to make sure that we listen, hear, don't react, but make sure that we fight against those stereotypes that they're putting us to, to say that we want to not have police. Of course we want police. I want to be able to call 911, but let's be smart. So one of the things I pushed is for us to have cameras, because we didn't have cameras before, to gain trust on both the police and the folks in our community. So I think common sense, we could still use common sense in the things that we do. And we need to make sure that we don't let the Republicans take away and have us painted as radical people. We're really not. We're still raising our families and in our community. So I hope that answers that question, because it's really important that they are attacking on things that aren't true. They're just not true.
Great, great. Linda, I imagine you also are dealing with some of that. And one of the questions in the chat is, how do you outreach to these sort of moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, the never Trumpers, and kind of tread that line of standing for your values, but also people who are more in the middle?
Well, with the moderate Republicans, I don't waste too much time. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I just don't. Because to me, a Republican is a Republican. My opponent was a Democrat and unaffiliated, and now he's a Republican. That's what I'm dealing with, and he's an African-American as well. So that's what I'm dealing with here in Wilson. So I may reach out to all the others, and they may, and my friends who are Republicans, and I have Republican friends, and we're going to remain friends, and I will ask them, I need you to vote for me. And some of them do, because within my community, I have relationship, because I'm a retired teacher and I've been retired for 15 years, but I had the opportunity to work with the school system as a consultant to help those students who were unable to go for whatever the reason, medical, whether it was a suspension, whether it was because of disability or whatever. They had to be homeschooled and by the school system. So I was one of those persons that was sent to be able to work with them. And a lot of them were Republicans, just in talking with them and communicating with them before I even became who I am now. And they'll come to me and they'll say, well, Linda, yes, we're going to vote for you. And even their children, the ones that I taught, and they'll say, yes, this is what's going to happen, but they'll say it to me quietly. Mm. And so I'll ask them, I'll say, well, I need your support, and whoever else you can get in your families, then yes. In regards, so I would reach out to them, but in regards to the police issues and all of that, I've already seen one of the flyers that said, I believe in defunding. And even in my last election, and I didn't understand all that whole world of what I'm learning, what I've learned in regards to this world of politics. And I made it clear then, I don't believe in defunding the police at all, but to support our law enforcement. But to be able to provide more funds for training so that those persons with mental illnesses, those persons who need the support for the police person, as well as the ones that's being apprehended or being taken in, to make sure that they have the right supports. So therefore, those are some of the issues that things that I have said. But one of the things that I'm dealing with also is propaganda. And a piece of propaganda is that I have the power, one person, I have the power to bankrupt the state of North Carolina. And that's part of the propaganda that I'm hearing. and that people are sharing with me when I go to the post office and other places. So I'm reaching out to any and everyone, but I'm not going to waste time. I'm not going to waste time on Republicans, but I want my team to make sure that they let everybody in this district, with those mailers and digital, whatever they have to do, then make sure they know that he is not he's a Republican. He is a Republican and he carries their values, and he will have to be one when he goes. No, I'm not even gonna say that. He's gonna have to be one, okay? I hope I answered the question.
Yes, yes. I always find it so ironic that the party that is saying, you know, oh, you don't respect the police is the party that supports people who are violating the law and January 6th rioters and don't support the police in those instances. So I always feel we should go on the offense with that issue and not be defensive about it. Well, thank you both to our wonderful candidates. You've been just such an inspiration tonight. And I think that's being shown in our fundraising. We've already gotten so close to meeting our goal. And of course, there's still room to grow. So you all have the link, and please continue to support our candidates. And we just wish you so much luck. We've got your back. We are behind you. So
Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a good evening. Yes, I look
Thanks
forward
again.
to seeing you guys again.
Thank you for coming. Thanks to our guests, and thank you to all the people that attended.